potential injury is not a possibility. You can't be working towards that. And the only way to work opposite of working toward an injury is making good decisions, listening to your body, asking your body for appropriate feedback, and processing that feedback correctly. So how do you feel? Do you feel like, hey, you know what, I got 315 for 20 reps this time, you know, and then maybe go up to, you know, 365 or 405 for less reps? But that's your call. See, the benefit of doing these later on is you don't have to go super heavy in order to get a great benefit from it. You know, at this point, all of the larger muscles, your quads, hamstrings, and glutes, they've already gotten a lot of direct stimulation. 8, 9, 10. What's up, y'all? Your boy here with a quick tip. A lot of people think about cardio for just the cosmetic effect, cosmetic benefit. But I'll tell you this, overall cardio efficiency is very important to overall health. And long before you can turn around and make your arm grow even at ½ an inch, it's much more important to think about having an efficient working heart and circulatory system. So just an FYI, one good way that I found to address that positively is to think about incorporating some kind of approach to doing the cardio every day. In the morning, on an empty stomach, there's the added benefit of, you know, spiking or increasing your metabolic rate and stuff, but more importantly, setting up some good habits that can help you on every front, not just cosmetically, but also health-wise. Protein. You need to really think very sensitively about your filtration, kidneys, and something as simple as drinking lots of water, you know, can sometimes mean the difference between complications and not having, you know? Back, roll back. Oh yeah. So forward. Sorry. Pull here. Even when we do those pullovers, don't stop here. Because that's how you activate more use of your lats. Does that make sense? Particularly down in here, the longitudinal muscles closer into the spine. That's how you activate more of that. Does that make sense? See, right here is when you get an opportunity to see one of the subtle and most significant differences between a men's physique athlete and an old school bodybuilding athlete. You understand? There are things like this that wouldn't necessarily be in the training regimen of a men's physique athlete. Glute kickbacks like this, being this inventive for the sake of developing quality hamstrings and glute development, it wouldn't necessarily be necessary to find an exercise like this and the demonstration of a discipline towards developing your physique like this in a men's physique athlete's protocol. Not to say anything negative about men's physique, but they're two very different things. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the up-and-coming athletes of tomorrow that are undecided about which one they want to be, it's in a situation like this where you can see the reason why you need to be clear about knowing the difference and knowing what you want, you know? Because the protocol wouldn't be required to do something like this in that kind of training, to do that kind of end result. Does that make any sense? If it makes sense to somebody out there, touch your neighbor and say it makes sense. Thoughts become things. Alright. Mr. King said I need to stop resting. You're giving him too much. You ready, Dr. King? So here's the thing. I'm going to lock forward, try to activate my glute at the top, and drive it through my hamstring. So I'm not going to sit here with my ass up in the air like we looking for action, because we ain't looking for none of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to lock the glute down, causing flexion at the bottom of the maximus, and then we're going to muscle it through the contraction on your hamstring, bicep femoris. The next time you do this, the next day, 2 days from now, it'll be a lot easier. And then by the time you get on stage, it'll look like you've been doing it forever. You know what I mean? And that's what makes the difference between a guy that looks like he's going to place first, second, third, and fourth. Well, how did this guy, all of them look very muscular, all of them look really good, all of them look like they dieted and conditioned, but what is the little things? The devil is in the detail. The devil is in the discipline. When you do these little exercises that we're talking about right now, that's how you say you want this. And that's how you end up putting one thing and another step together to ultimately become these strings, consistent strings of action that add up to be the reason why you're awarded top honors over somebody else that hasn't done that work. Does that make sense? That makes sense. All right. So that's it. When you turn to the side, I saw you do your quarter turn for the side. For the side, you're killing it for me. I heard you say okay. I thought you meant particularly, who was it? Oh man.
We actually just talked about injuries.
That's right. We particularly now, because a lot of people are starting to get ready to start turning up the notches, tightening the gears a little bit, start getting ready for the shows that are coming up in March. And for those people that are participating in the online training, I've experienced a bunch of questions that talk about training around injuries. And a lot of times people are under the misconception that, you know, you have to wait until you're perfectly healthy all the time before you can try to train regularly. Believe it or not, those guys that break the records in the NFL, even the NBA, star performing athletes that go on and do things that are incredibly groundbreaking, that are achieving great things, aren't waiting for the time when everything feels good. So sometimes what happens is you have to work through an injury. I'm not trying to talk about re-injuring yourself, but I am talking about finding a place that is comfortable and not letting yourself off the hook, pushing yourself through. In this case, you just saw Dr. King talking about he has an injury that he's trying to work around. And as he's pushing towards the achievement of greatness at his up-and-coming competition, you know, he still has some things that he's trying to be sensitive to in the way of getting around an injury. So, in short, it's not what you do when you're dealing with an obstacle. It's what you do despite the obstacles that will make the world of difference, and how you will be seen as a champion or as a settler. Don't be a settler. We're training for different reasons. You know, you have a different goals than mine. I have to be mindful, you know, and understand that my goals are a lot different from yours because of where we are. We're just getting started, and I'm somewhere, you know, where I need to be concerned about polish and refinement. But where you are, if you do aspire to go on and actually turn pro and see that part of what you talked about realized, then what you need to be doing is one, gaining control of your instrument right now. You know, learning how to connect, find neurologically where your tricep is. And once you've gotten it, work it accordingly through the right mechanics to train it as it needs to be from every angle in order to be that masterful piece, that monument of muscle that you will need it to be later on in your career should you turn pro and stand on stage with the big guys. The most important nutrition tip I can give would be to remember that you don't have to be a slave to taste. I remember Sean Ray wrote some really cool article many years ago in the old Flex magazine before going to muscular development, and in it he described eating like a machine and recognizing that he didn't have to be led by compulsion or his taste buds. You know, we eat to satisfy the requirements that are going to assist us in getting where we're trying to go. You know, an ample amount of protein, ample amount of good fats, ample amount of vitamins and those nutrients that are going to help me advance.
Hi, so when you start to get more aggressive with your reps, and like I can see in your face you're more aggressive with it, are you still focused on the same, like what we were doing when it was lighter?
Yeah, but that's why it's so important to do that earlier on. To pre-exhaust that the surrounding tissue gets what it needs. So when you get here, it's different than if you were to start here fresh. really, really strong, and probably stronger than for your own good. Does that make sense? You want to be warm, because the truth is it only takes an instant to feel, oh, what the fuck was that? And now we have 6 weeks, or maybe 6 months, to rehab an injury and kind of try to figure out what went wrong. Okay. So I'm a person that believes in volume, in large part because I think it's really, really important to try to protect myself as best I can. So I'm constantly feeling. And I think you have to continue to ask yourself, what do I feel? Where do I feel it? Do I feel this where I want to feel it? What does that feel like? How did I feel that last set? Where are we at? More than just putting on the headphones and wilding out. More than just taking a pre-workout and going crazy. But there has to be a controlled discipline to what you're doing. And that's why the first few sets really is that. You know? Okay, so now we've walked, we've kind of like painstakingly walked through this path. We've seen where this stuff is. We've seen what to avoid, what not to avoid. Okay. Now, let's pile it on a little bit. Let's get these last 2 sets. A little bit more intensity, obviously. And then move on while we still have enough blood and everything while it's still hot. So we can get the real benefit of doing a deadlift or one of the other multi-synergistic mass building movements. Does that make sense?
Don't worry about the obstacles, because the obstacles will come. The challenges will always be there. And they may seem numerous, but the truth is, greater is He that is in you than any of those obstacles and challenges. So be of good courage, be encouraged.
You know how you feel, and sometimes your feelings will betray you. And when you're trying to improve, you have to be able to push yourself. But it's a very delicate line between when you're pushing yourself to advance and when you're pushing yourself towards the potential of an injury. So, now you got to use your tools. If you have the opportunity to choose to push yourself to achievement or towards failure, you should always err on the side of pushing yourself towards achievement. I'm sharing with you how I think, particularly now when we're about to do this set. I can't think about injuries, I have to try to stay 3 steps ahead of that. And what I'm explaining to you is what my thought process is now as I get ready to do this next set. It's really like giving you insight into the mind of a dude that can win 3 Arnolds in a row and blah, blah, blah. But what does he think about before he does a big set? I'm sharing it with you right now, you know. There are times when your feelings will betray you. Your feelings will tell you, whoa, back up. I don't know what's that, you know, and you have to process that and make intelligent decisions that will allow you to push or know when you need to pull back a little bit. Strong fundamentals, training legs. Legs always start with calves. To me, start with calves. Reason why I say this is because there used to be a time when I first started training, I thought my legs were a reflection of my training. And my training was a reflection of how I thought. Because I spent so much time and effort invested in squats, leg extensions, this, and this for quads, I ended up developing legs that had great quads, but hamstrings that were inferior in development to my quads, and then calves that were even far behind the both of them. Your glutes contract. So now by getting down here and opening up your femur bone, your glute becomes like this. So sit the thing. The thing is to sit. Does that make sense? When you do this movement, it's not enough to just kick your feet up, but to contract your glutes. You contract your bicep. You don't just go like this, but you contract your bicep and make the contraction of your bicep responsible for pulling the arm. Does that make sense? So the same thing happens with your glute. Your glute reaches over to your femur bone, and as it contracts, it moves your knee. Does that make sense? So this here occurs as a result of contracting your glute. Does that make sense? So when we do this exercise, You have to consciously be aware of contracting your glute.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're gonna do 20 reps first set. This technically is a squat. Is that? A lot of times people think about squatting just up and down.
Yeah.
In quads.
Yeah.
But this is a contraction in your glute. So your glute reaches around to your femur bone, and as it pulls your knees back, your femur back, it's a contraction that occurs in this muscle. So when we're doing this, to hold your knees out is talking about contracting your glute.
Yeah.
When you're squatting, the same thing applies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not squatting, but we are squatting.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about using our glute, recruiting our glute.
Yeah.
What's up, y'all? Your boy Kai Greene, aka Mr. Getting It Done. Got a question for you. Are you taking your Vindicate? You don't know? You better ask somebody. Anyway, what's up, man? Kai Greene's here. Go to your boy. It's your boy Kai. Check me out on Snapchat. We're going to be available for a little bit. We're going to talk about nutrition. If you're ready, let's rock. Peace. And if you're wondering what that beeping is, that's my other part of my meal. That's right, my boy from NutriChef, AJ, done hooked us up. So we're talking, we're eating. Check us out, Snapchat. Peace. Honestly, when I do this, I think about those thick-ass bodybuilders with the improvement through up here when doing your most muscular. Does that make sense? When you actually wrap your hands around these bars, your hands become like hooks, and you want to raise, almost like doing a side lateral. So the lateral head of your delt is activated, as well as your mid-trap. So if I were to turn around, the middle area of your trap, as well as some of the fibers in the upper trap. And you have the ability in that to add to the contraction, the awareness of your sternoclavicular portion of your chest. So technically what I'm talking about here is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you were to imagine being a sculptor, you know, putting your physique together, improving your most muscular shot here. That's what this movement helps to do. It adds to the cap on your delts. The addition is expressed through the awareness of using your front delt. It polishes off with this really cool sculpting element to the clavicular, sternoclavicular area of your chest. So everything, all this right here, technically is spoken to with this upright row. Does that make sense? The difference between doing it wide and narrow may be expressed in another more better way to articulate it. But right this minute, as I am doing this exercise, and as I'm sharing this exercise with my training partner right now, this is the thing that's going through my head. So when I look in the mirror, I'm bouncing that thought off of the feedback that I see in the mirror, and I'm looking for validation in what I see happening in the mirror as I'm actually doing this set. This is where we start to talk about how this is a mind, an experience of your mind, an expression of your thoughts. Technically, what we're doing is we're polishing, we're adding polish, or the finishing step to the top part of your most muscular with your hands in front of you. So I'm thinking about images like Branch Warren at his best, Dennis James, Mr. Swole, Kevin Levrone, full blown. You know, Woody was full blown. I gotta look at you with that one. Catch the look. Anyway, I'm coming back. That's what should be going through your mind when you see this. If you're not, then you're missing the connection. You get me? That means the train is pulled out of the station and you ain't on it. I gotta look at you when I say that. Look at you too. You know, a lot of times we can get lost in considering a lot of things that aren't important. You know, But one of the things I think is the really big benefit of being able to exercise is those feel-good properties that are released in the way of good biochemistry hormones that, you know, help us feel good and actually connect us to the healing and therapeutic part of exercise. By itself, together, no.
The best is together. Two times. The first and the second.
Yeah, because the first is traps. The second is your rear delts. The first activate trap. Okay. Second is rear delts. So it's the beginning is activation on the trap.
La prima parte
the second is activation on the rear delt. You know? So trap, rear delt. Trap, rear delt. Trap, rear delt.
Very good.
And that's what starts to bring out middle trap.
Yes.
Middle trap. Not, I mean, the top is, but middle. So in between here and
the
here.
Central, okay.
Middle trap and rear delt.
Yeah.
So this whole area comes alive from the point to this point.
Yes, sir. Externally.
Ah,
okay.
So this is a trap. So here, trap. Go ahead, with the first part. Trap. Now the second part, rear delt. Ah, see,
rear delt.
Activation here.
Yes.
So all of this.
Okay.
So trap in the beginning, rear delt brings all of this middle, all of this together.
Okay.
So all of this becomes activated. Just to stand there and hold it. See how you flex? This is a lot of muscle here. Holding that bar like that adds to the development in this area. Does that make sense? And it'll make every other exercise now that you do for your rear delt become that much more effective.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Very good. Very good.
And it also sits in your lap indirectly.
Indirettamente anche i dorsali.
So while you're concentrating on here and here, right? Indirectly, this, but then also
hold the back
from in here.
Okay.
It starts to activate when the weight is heavier, you know, because this is a supporting muscle group to trying to assist in pulling your elbows back, your humerus bone. This bone, in order to take this bone and pull it back against your chest, it's talking about activation of everything through here. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So in time, what it does is it starts to talk about finite details and thickness in areas that you wouldn't have it if you just did heavy work without the controlled contraction. Because the power in this is the controlled contraction. It's the pause as your muscles contract against the resistance. This is why we do together.
Okay.
Because it's not enough just to do this heavy. 4 reps.
Okay.
Non serve a niente.
No,
not alone. Only together.
And then hit. It's like doing a regular bicep. That's your rear delt in your traps. You get me?
Yeah.
The isometric contraction is what commands your body to get that finish. The guy can be big, but to have cross striations in these little areas, you know, those details comes from controlled contraction, deliberate movements. Does that make sense? To effectively and efficiently use your instrument, your muscles. Does that make sense?